Beverly Anderson-Abbs, and I'm with OIMA SWAMP at the State Water Board. And we're working on a number of projects that started just before I came on to SWAMP, so I'm picking up all these projects and helping to usher them forward to their completion and continuance. Number one, we're working on the monitoring strategy. We're working with NOAA and SFEI on satellite monitoring. We're going to be starting with a newsletter and website and field and laboratory guidance documents, trainings like this set of 4 trainings that are going on here, and working up some laboratory resources that people can access. So I'll go into these a little bit separately. So the draft Freshwater HABs Monitoring Assessment and Reporting Strategy is being written by Meredith Howard at SWRCB Institute. And the goal is to develop a long-term vision to address and mitigate cyanobacteria and cyanotoxins. So the big question that a bunch of people have had is, what do we do about them?
This is going to help us get to that area. Okay, right now we're looking at, well, how do we know? How do we know what we've got? How do we test it? We need to also know what do we do about it once we know. So that assessment or that strategy is going to help us get to that point, and was initially due next month in August. It has been pushed back because of contracting issues. The contract didn't get in place until middle of July, or like about a week ago, I think they signed the contract. So it got pushed back a little bit. So hopefully by September, early October, we'll have this strategy ready to go. Satellite imagery, some of you may have gotten in on the NOAA webinar or been up in San Francisco for the training on the satellite imagery. SFEI is working with NOAA to access imagery of pretty much all of California. They've got it for the United States, but they're focusing on California for our issues. And what they will be able to do is identify where blooms are starting and be able to contact lake managers and let them know. So if you don't know what's going on, if there's a bloom starting in a part of a lake that you may not get to very often, you're not familiar with doing monitoring because you've never had a bloom before, if they pick it up on the satellite imagery, they can contact those lake managers and say, hey, you might want to go and check this part of the lake and get on top of this before it becomes a big issue. Okay. Unfortunately, it only is good for larger lakes. So they've got a list of, right now, I think it's about 230 odd lakes in California that they think they can process the images for. That may come down a little bit, that may go up a little bit. So somewhere in the 200 lake range, they'll be able to process those images. They're also working on a status and trends report. So we've got a researcher who is compiling all of these satellite images from 2002 to 2012, and he's going to be going through all of that information and compiling, where are the lakes that we've seen these blooms showing up, what are the trends that occur, what lakes should we be focusing on. There might be some lakes that have never ever had a bloom. You can put it as a low priority. If there's a lake that shows up that seems to bloom every year based on these status and trends reports, we want to focus on those. So this is in the off as well. And then this group, SFEI, will also be working on a bi-weekly newsletter and or bulletin. They'll be putting up a website so that people will be able to go to this website. If you have a bloom that you haven't been informed about, you go out and you monitor and you find a bloom somewhere, you can go to this website that's going to be developed, put in the information, and then we've got that to track. So we'll have a two-way website for you. So any reports that come in, if you're a manager at a lake, or you know someone who's a manager at a lake, and they're getting reports that dogs are getting sick when they go out to the lake, that kind of information is going to be helpful to go into this website. And that's going to be part of that CCHAB My Water Quality portal once it gets developed. A couple of guidance documents are being developed right now. We're going to have a field section that will include SOPs for sampling cyanobacteria, some of the stuff that Dr. Carmichael was talking about this morning, and health and safety recommendations. We have some experts working on a laboratory section with SOPs for ELISA and LC-MS. So different ways of testing and analyzing the toxins. And we're working with 5 major labs in California to make sure that everyone's doing the same thing, and we can compare between the different labs and know what's going on. There's also a couple of people at SWAMP in Sacramento who are working on how to understand what an analysis from a lab means, because sometimes they send you information and don't really tell you what it means. So we're working on some guidance documents for that. The trainings, as I mentioned, this training is part of the SWAMP program for this year. The NOAA training in May, going over the satellite imaging, that was part of the SWAMP program. We're going to be doing a follow-up training next year, probably about the same time period, July, but these are going to be much more in-depth 2-day sessions. Same 4 locations. So that's going to be coming up. And then we're also working on a lake manager training for sometime later this fall. So it'll be put out to lake managers throughout the state. It'll be held at SWRCB up in Costa Mesa to talk about what to do if you have a bloom. How do you deal with it on the ground? So that'll be a little more focused on out in the field stuff. And we're also working on some laboratory resources. SWAMP is going to be working with EPA, US EPA, in a week and a half. We've got a meeting to talk about criteria to help pay for analysis for various places, because we know that there are lakes being managed by small groups, small cities and towns who can't afford to send samples and get everything analyzed for them. So SWAMP has $25,000 this year and $25,000 next year, and US EPA has, I'm not sure how much they have, to pay for those analyses. So we'll be getting together with US EPA and determine criteria so that if you do have something that you need tested, we'll be able to help out with paying for those analyses, sending them to the labs. And there's that little handout that I gave you, just those websites and subscribe lists. So as I mentioned, the new CyanoHAB, CC-HAB network is the top one. This one, if you want to stay on top of things, if you want to get emails as some of these documents come around, this is a good one to get subscribed to. So just go to that link and ask for a subscription, and you will get any update emails that come out from CC-HAB. And that'll include all the SWAMP projects as well. And then this is more specifically for SWAMP information. And I ran through that really quickly because I know everyone wants to look at icky things in the microscopes. So does anyone have any questions?